record. Okay, you all need to approve that if you would.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. And I needed to move you all around just a little bit so that I could see everything. Okay, so Bonnie, you did this one with your 4.5.
Yeah,
And
I did change my lens because my big lens was too much for the small backyard.
definitely.
So I have a 24-105. So I changed that because it was just more practical.
Oh, yes, of course. Definitely than the big lens, definitely. So this is your 4.5. And like we discussed last class, when you're using that 4.5 and your background is 8 to 10 feet away, if not more than that, then you see we've got a nice soft background here. So everything looks really good. And then here you go to 5.6, you kept your focus going real well. So the background and the exposure is going well too, because you balance your light meter so they both look exactly the same. And then here's your 8, and it's getting a little bit brighter on this one. So maybe the meter wasn't as balanced, or maybe the light changed just a bit. And then you're back to normal on your 11. There you go. And that background's getting a little bit more crisp. And then there we go to the 16. And there you go to the 22. And it does just like it's supposed to. As that number gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then you can see more details in the background. So you did a good job on that one. And then here's your water. And if you will notice, then this is at 400th of a second. But if you notice where the faucet is down here, or the sprayer is down here, the focus isn't on that. And so that might be a little bit why this is kind of out of focus, just a hair. But then it looks much, much better when you got to 2/50th of a second. And you notice that the sprayer's now in focus. So it's a good thing when you're trying to do water moving like this, focus on something that's solid. And then
I focused on the middle of the water, so that I was going to ask you that. Is that what I should not have done?
Right,
because obviously the moving is too much.
The moving's too much. Yeah,
okay.
It's much too much. But once you get focused in on the squirter, the sprayer, then it helps. But here you're 2/50th. You notice that we're not solid, and then definitely 125, definitely not solid. And look at that, by 60th, it's just a stream, where it was just nice little balls of water. And 30th, here it comes, and it really is just becoming a nice continuous spray. But notice also the light's remaining the same. So you did a great job, Bonnie, on keeping that light meter balanced throughout all of this. And then there you go. Okay, so we did. So you did a good job.
Yeah.
Any trials and tribulations on that one?
No, not really. The main thing was the water. That after I looked at the pictures, I said, okay, I obviously didn't do that right. I should have focused on something else. But I didn't go back, and it was too much trouble to go back.
Yes.
So, but I was just trying to, at least I thought, well, at least I'm seeing that progression that I'm supposed to see.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So now it's making sense.
Yes.
Good. And then Monica, here's yours. And 2/50th of a second. And notice way out in here, you can see that we've got nice little balls of water on that fountain way out in there. And then here it is at 1/25th of a second. And by the way, you were still at F11. So that means you changed your shutter speed, but didn't change your f-stop to balance it. And that's why I've got a little bit brighter exposure here. And then here you are at 60th of a second, and you see we're getting streaks in that water. And 30th of a second. And it looks like maybe it was harder for you to balance the light meter because it was so bright outside.
It did change, and I had anticipated, I had a short lens, and it was kind of a quick trip out. And I had anticipated using a fountain that I was going to be really close to. So, and then it also went from cloudy to more sunny. So
yeah.
I played with it quite a bit, and I started getting frustrated, and I said, I'm just going to stop and I'm going to do what I can do. And that's the purpose of this.
That's right. Exactly. Yes, it's not worth a meltdown.
Oh, no. I just get a little perfectionistic about it sometimes. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not the idea.
That's right. And then here it is at 15th of a second, and the meter's obviously not balanced because you just got, and you're at F20. So I think what happened is that you hit your maximum f-stop. And so you went on with and changed the shutter speed, but yet we didn't have enough f-stop to an aperture change there. So then now you're way overexposed.
Yeah.
But there is some streaking going on in the water. And then here's the last one, and there's some streaking going on in the water as well. Yeah, but definitely not balancing the light meter at this point. So good job on that. And then here's your statue. And you did a great job on this one because it remains the same all the way through it. So you did it, you got it. So here's your 4.5. And I love this statue, by the way, it's really neat.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And then here's your 4.5 with the blown out bricks, the nice blurry bricks in the background. And then 5.6, just a hair sharper on the bricks, but notice the light stays just exactly the same. So you did a great job on that one. And then your 6.8 light stays the same again. And then 8 bricks are getting a little bit clearer. And once again, everything's staying the same, all the lights the same. So that's where we know that you're balancing it every single time, is when the light remains the same. And then F11, those bricks are getting a little clearer, 16 a little clearer, and 22 they got clear. Yeah. So good job on that one. So your perfectionism, you perfectionism did that one.
Yeah.
It's good. Any frustrations or anything else on that one?
I think just when the light changes, I just need to practice that more. In fact, I was outside trying to take pictures of the storm clouds, and I noticed when the light changes, like, okay, well, let me bump either down with the meter or up and just kind of play with it and see how it works out. Yeah. And it's starting to work better. So my understanding of how to either bump the light meter up or down is getting better.
Good. That's what I want to hear. Very good. Very good. And Alicia, here's yours. And she brought up a really good question, which I'll tell you all about in just a little bit today when I was trying to help on this one. So here you are at 4.5 and you've got your focus on your Coke bottle. And were you on a tripod?
Yeah, I was on a tripod. It's a Surveyor tripod, so it's a little, it was on a decline. It was just very frustrating. It was hot. I just could not get it to. Wasn't
the greatest. I was looking at your reflection under magnification to try to figure out if you were on tripod, and I figured you were just from your reflection in the bottle. So here's you at 4.5. You're looking good. And then here's you at 5.6, and you got a little bit off because it's a little bit brighter. And then here you are at 7.1, still a little bit off because it's a little on the bright side. And then 8, and we're starting to see more of the stuff behind it. So you're doing a good job on that one. And then here you go at 11, F11. And this is where you asked me in your email today whether, it looks clear in the camera, but it's not clear. And you're already at 1/10 of a second here. And then you're on a tripod that's not real stable. And that's why you're blurring.
Okay.
So it's not your camera. It's just not fast enough shutter speed, and then not enough stability because of the tripod you were using.
All right.
Yeah. And then here you are at F16, and now we can see almost everything behind the Coke bottle. So good job on that one. And there you go all the way to F22. And now we can see almost everything in the background, and the bottle is still nice and crisp. So you're doing okay on that one. Yeah. And then here's your water. And this is just a great illustration of your water. I think you did a good job setting this one up. So this is 2/50th of a second. And then notice that the 2/50th of a second, this water is really streaking out. What'd you do? Did you put a hose up there and you're shooting it into the?
Yeah, we were at work and my coworker was spraying into the bird fountain that was empty. And so I just had it as close as I could without the camera getting wet. And Yeah, so he would stop and then I would set it up and then he would start spraying into it. So that's why it comes in at different angles.
Yeah,
too.
very good, very good. But look at this, there's a drop hanging off of it
I
down
love
here.
that.
And see,
Yeah.
this drop is almost just frozen in midway. So it's moving slower than the stream of water. So you were able to stop that drop coming off of there at 2/50th of a second. So that's kind of cool.
That's very cool.
And then here's another one. You're not losing your meter is balanced, so you're doing good. But 1/25th, these drops are getting really big and streaked. And it's nice because there's lots of sun shining on them, so you can get all the detail in them. And then here you are at 60th of a second. You got splashes going on, all kinds of good stuff happening. And then here you are at 30th of a second. And notice that now that this is just really getting, the wall's still solid, the bird bath is still solid, the cactus over here is solid, but boy, that water is really getting blurred. And then there you are at 15th of a second. And now the tripod's giving way.
Yeah, it was balanced on a stool. Oh my gosh, it was just, I had it like set up. There wasn't enough room because it doesn't go up and down, so you have to move the legs out. And so I had it on a stool and going on here, and I had my leg around it. So I think I tripped over it at that point. And I was getting frustrated. I could feel Monica's frustration because I was doing the same thing about this point.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, you did it because your meter stayed balanced the whole time because your light's not changing too much. So you're doing a good job on that one. And, all of our frustration we learn during all that frustrating times. And so that's why it's important to do these type of things. And then here you are at 1/8 of a second. And I just threw these in at the end that this has just become not even drops of water anymore. This is just a huge splash. And then at 1/4 of a second, look at that. It's just a splash.
Yeah, and the overexposure was just,
yeah. And they were overexposed. And with the sunlight that we've had, because it's been very bright, these in particular, you notice that you ran over because you just didn't have enough working room to get these slow shutter speeds during the middle of the day trying to work with the water. So this also explains that once you can't balance that light meter to the criteria I was saying, balance the light meter, then you know that the picture's not going to come out. So if you get to that point where the meter's not balancing, and I had you in a box, so you were very constrained by what you could do, but then you got to make some changes.
Okay.
Yeah. So good job. Good job. Congratulations to all of you all. I'm very proud of you. Thank you very much for doing your homework. I know it's not easy, but this is Tracy's camera, who's not with us today, and I'll skip through this. Anybody, Bonnie, any questions on the back of your camera?
Well, mine doesn't look like that, first of all.
Are you the 6D, Bonnie?
I'm a 6D, but
Yeah.
I was like one of the first models, I guess, that came out.
Oh,
But
okay. But
well, I guess it doesn't look. Yeah, except I guess that 8,000, mine it doesn't have little boxes around it, but it has the same information in line. So yes.
So no questions that you ran into?
No, in fact, I've learned a lot just with the settings that I had to do and then making these photographs. And I did have a friend of mine get my camera to where I could adjust the f-stop and the shutter speed separately on those two different dials.
Super. Very
So
good.
that was like, whew.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Super. Yeah. And then Pam, any questions on yours?
No, I've been playing with mine for quite some time. So yeah, no, I think I'm good.
Okay, good.
No, you know what, Kathy, can I take that back? There's one that's has a Q on it. What is that?
Q is how you have the screen pulled up like this on the back of the camera. And then when you push Q, it will light up one of these depending on what you use last. And then you can toggle using this button right here or these buttons right here to the other items on the back of your screen.
Got it.
So Q just activates your back screen.
Okay, Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There you go. And Alicia, any questions on the back of your camera?
No. There was an issue that I was having with the light meter though. It
Yeah.
got frozen at one point where I could not move it back and forth. But I don't know what I did. It worked itself out. And that was another concern that popped up after we were emailing. And I was like, why won't it move? I was changing the shutter speed. I went down low and I could not, and I couldn't get couldn't get it in the middle like I was doing before.
Was it because if your light meter on all your cameras is up against the right side or up against the left side, no matter how much you turn the dial or rotate the dial, it won't move, or it looks like it won't move. So if that ever happens, rotate the dial the other direction and move it away from the side.
Yeah, I was going all the way.
Yeah.
And then it would not, it was just stuck. It was just
And then you went the other way to make it go the other direction?
and it never moved. It was
And it
just
wouldn't
stuck
move?
on the far left side, on the negative side of the
Okay, okay,
yeah.
okay. Keep watching that to see
Okay.
if there's maybe a problem with it.
All right, I will.
Yeah, but just remember, you got to move those, because if it jams up against one of the sides, you might have to rotate the dial for a long time to get it to come back away.
No, I did that a lot, especially in the overexposed ones where I couldn't, it was doing that a lot. So I was familiar with that. So when it stayed there, I was just getting a little concerned.
Okay, okay. Time to get a little concerned then. Keep watching it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then Monica, any questions on the back of your camera?
No, I'm good. And I found out by pressing that key button, I can just touch my f-stop or my shutter, and I can just rotate it on the dial. I don't have to go into the program part every time and do that. So I was really excited about that.
Yeah, yeah, because you've got the touch screen on the back. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I did realize my flash, apparently I have to raise my flash.
You do.
Yes.
You do, because you're in manual now. And so nothing happens on the camera without you making that choice. Yeah.
Oh,
So if you're in the program mode or something like that, and it thinks that you need to raise your flash, then it'll raise your flash, even if you don't want to raise the flash.
Yeah.
So now you're in charge
Yeah.
when you're in manual mode. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now this was a question that Alicia asked me, and I think it's a really important question. It's something that I usually don't cover in class, but I'm now going to start covering it. All of you all have this green dot that shows up through your viewfinder. And if you want to just put your camera up to your face right now and look through it and push your shutter button halfway down, when it's in the bottom right-hand corner, if you are a Canon user, and it's a green dot in the bottom right-hand corner. And if you are in AFS, which I'll explain in just a moment, you get a solid green dot. And if you're in AFC, which I'll explain in just a moment, you get a blinking dot. And that dot is your focus confirmation. And so if you get that solid green dot showing up, then you know that you're in focus.
And what if it doesn't show up at all?
If it doesn't show up at all, you might not be, it should show up if you're in the manual mode, aperture priority mode, or shutter priority mode.
Okay.
If you're in one of the other modes, it won't show up at all.
So I'm in manual right now, of course, and all
You're
the
in
pictures I
manual?
was taking, I was noticing that sometimes I get a little flash of that green, but otherwise it wasn't showing up at all.
Interesting, because it should show up. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and I've never seen it. It's never shown up. What it explains why all my photos are out of focus, but I've never, and I was looking for it now and I don't see it.
And according to your manual, because this is a copy of the photo from your manual, your dot should be right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kathy, I don't see it either.
You don't see it either? Is it on the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side?
I don't see one.
It's on the right. It's on the right. but
Yours is on the right.
Yeah, it doesn't light up though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a
That's
Canon
like the
user and
occasional.
it's always there.
I
found it.
see a spot
I
where
was-
it's supposed to be, but
Monica, you see it?
Yes.
I found it too, Kathy.
Pam, you found it?
Yep. I just wasn't pressing it hard enough.
Okay. Yeah, you just have to push your shutter halfway down and you should notice that that green dot shows up. And that's your focus confirmation. Do you see it, Alicia?
No, it looks like there's where it's supposed to be. Like this is a used camera, so I don't know what happened prior to it. So I can see where there's a light should come on, but
Uh-huh.
I've never seen it actually pop up. It's right
Okay.
next to the number, like
Okay.
that.
Well, when you see it, you'll know what it is. Okay.
Okay.
I just put mine on auto and it did it.
And it did it. Yeah. In the auto mode up on top. No. Go back to the manual mode up on top.
No, I'm back to manual. I just did
Oh.
it just to do the focus.
Oh, okay.
And it
Okay.
and it went "Beep," and it showed me the little green light.
Good. Okay, so let me explain to you why I made you set your camera in certain ways. So autofocus continuous. This is AI servo for all of you Canon users. And for Tracy, this is who's not here tonight, it's AFC. But on the back of your display panel, you'll see AI servo, or you'll see a button that says servo somewhere. So that AI servo, when you're in AI servo, means that the camera is constantly auto-focusing on a subject. So wherever you put your little individual focus point, remember you should be using one individual focus point, not all of them. When you're using that one individual focus point and you put it on your subject and you're in AI servo, then you'll get a blinking green dot because the camera is going back constantly and refocusing on the subject. So that's called AI servo. Canon users, if you all are in one shot versus AI servo, then one shot will not let you push the shutter button all the way down unless the camera thinks you are in focus. So for instance, as a bird photographer, me, a bird photographer, there's times when I want a photo of that bird, whether it's in focus or not. And so I don't want to be in one shot because one shot will prevent me from taking the picture unless the camera thinks I'm in focus. So that's why we want our cameras set in AI servo if we're a Canon user and autofocus continuous for Nikons and Panasonics. Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, rapid release, that's your 3 pieces of paper on top of each other. And Monica and Alicia, if you look on the back of your camera, you even have a little icon that shows you 3 pieces of paper on top of each other. You see that on the back of your camera?
Yeah.
And then Bonnie and Pamela, in yours, this is your release mode. So you've got it on your back display panel as well. See it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, mine is,
Pam,
yeah.
you see it?
Not yet.
It's on your back display panel. And I'm going to go backwards just a bit and I'm going to show you right where it is on your camera real fast. It is, see, here's your one shot for you Canon users. And then your 3 pieces of paper should be this one right here. Okay. So the 3 pieces of paper on top of each other, this is how fast your camera is going to take pictures, one right after the other. So this is your release mode. Alicia, you probably only have the 3 pieces of paper. You don't have a 3 pieces of paper with an H, right?
Correct. Right.
And then Monica and Pamela and Bonnie, you all have a 3 pieces of paper with an H. If you push your Q button and you go to that icon, you've got 3 pieces of paper with an H, correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay,
I've got the 3 pieces of paper with the S.
with an S, but you also have it with an H, right?
No, I have never changed that. So, let's see. No, it just has the 3 pieces of paper and then a single with an S and a triple with an S. I don't have an H.
You don't have an H?
No.
Okay, interesting. Okay, oh, you just have the 3 pieces of paper with the S
Yes.
right there. Okay, so that's silent, by the way. That's what that
Yeah.
is. And then, okay, so high speed or 3 pieces of paper with an H, this is how many pictures your camera can take per second. This is the maximum it can take. And if you would, don't balance your light meter, but just rotate your shutter speed to 4,000th of a second, please. Don't balance your light meter. Just rotate your shutter speed to 4,000th of a second, because all of you all can get to 4,000 of a second. And then when you get to 4,000th of a second, just hold your shutter down. And hold it down repeatedly. Just hold the button down. How many pictures does it take per second? Does it go fast or does it go slow?
Mine is.
I think it was not incredibly fast, but it went faster. It was continuous.
Okay, good, good, good. Alicia,
I would say the same. It was,
Felt pretty fast?
it was okay. It
Okay.
wasn't super fast.
Okay.
I don't have mine set on the H.
Monica, put yours on the H with the 3 pieces of paper. Pam and Bonnie, how'd y'all do?
Good.
I did
Went
probably
very fast.
3 shots a second, tick, 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 tick. But mine never goes faster than that.
Yours
Yeah.
doesn't ever go faster than that. Interesting. Okay. The 3, Pamela, 3 pieces of paper at the H,
Mhm.
when you fired it?
It was like ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, a little
Good,
bit.
good, 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 good. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So the 3 pieces of paper with the H, or the 3 pieces of paper with the S on the top of it for Bonnie and Pam. And then Monica, you don't have an H, right? Or you do have an H?
I do. I have both the H and just the 3 pieces of paper. So I
Okay.
moved it from the 3 to the H.
Okay, good, good. And then when you fire, does it fire really fast?
Yep.
Good, 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 good. Okay. If it doesn't fire really fast, or if it has a break, da 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 da, da 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 da, if it has a break, that's because your card is not fast enough to handle what the camera is producing. So if you hold the button down and it fires, and then it's silent for a minute, and then not a second, and then it fires some more, that means that the card you have in the camera is not keeping up with the camera. So if you're on the 3 pieces of paper with the H, or the 3 pieces of paper either way, and you're at 4,000th of a second, this is a good test. So when you hold your button down, it should fire as fast as the camera is mechanically able to do. But if you do have a break in that sequence, then that means that the card you're using is not fast enough to keep up with the camera. And the way that you do the math on that is you look on your card, don't do it right now, but you look on your card, you see what the speed is on your card, like 96 megabytes per second, and then how many megabytes your camera will produce it per file. And then that says that's how many pictures your card can handle when you hold the button down. And so it might be, if you're getting a gap in there where you're not hearing another picture taking, is that your card is not fast enough. And I've got some blog posts about that if you want to do the math on if you want to learn how to do the math on that one. Okay. And then, one individual focus point versus a cluster. So Alicia and Monica, you all have a kind of a diagonal or a kind of a triangle, diamond shape pattern of focus points on the back of your camera. You've got 9 of those that you can choose from. Bonnie and Pam, you all have more of those that you can choose from, and different types you can choose from. I prefer to use one individual focus point and then move that focus point around with that top right hand button, move that focus point around and make sure I'm putting it on the bird's face or on the human's face or on my still life, whatever I'm trying to focus on, like flowers or whatever. If I'm using a cluster, Bonnie and Pamela, on your camera, that's what I'm using on flying birds in the sky, is I'm trying to use a cluster on those. But otherwise, I'm using one individual focus point almost all the time and putting it where I want it to be. So it's just a
multiple
skill.
birds.
Pardon?
Many birds? You use that for many birds, the cluster?
If I'm doing it for many birds, then I'm just putting it on the bird I want it to be on.
Okay.
Okay. Or if there happens to be a flock, then I'll use a cluster for that flock. But
I
the
see.
camera is only choosing one point. There's only one focus point, no matter what you do. So if you
Okay.
put it on the cluster, the camera's choosing one.
Okay.
And then you don't get the choice. So we're designing our photograph. So that's why I'm putting it on the bird I
Okay.
want it to be on.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Now up on the top of your camera. Okay. So up on the top of your camera, you will all have a dial and it has the manual on it. It has AV, it has TV, and it has M. So M, AV, and TV. So let me explain to you what those are. So everybody's on the M mode right up on the top of your camera right now, right? You've
Right.
got your autofocus turned on. So your lens has autofocus on it. Your lens is turned on. So we're just talking about the mode of the camera. So in the M mode on the top of your camera, you are totally in charge of everything. There is nothing that that camera will do without you telling it to do it. And so this is where I want you to stay for a while until you feel comfortable knowing what should be on your camera and what shouldn't be on your camera. So that's why we want that to be in that M mode. The M mode also, to me as an educator, is kind of like the Montessori method, because you have to rotate a dial and you have to rotate another dial. So your hands are physically moving, which means that that's imprinting in your brain a bit better. So instead of letting the camera do anything automatically, you're physically having to do it with your fingers. This will make it stick in your brain better. So stick on the manual mode another month or so, not a month with the camera in the closet, a month of you using the camera. Stick on the manual mode. And then once you feel like, okay, I'm getting this, then you can move to aperture priority or shutter priority. So let me introduce to you aperture priority. Is everybody at 5.6?
Yes.
Everybody's
No.
at 5.6.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Okay.
5.6. Good. Okay. 5.6, by the way, is simply because all lenses can get 5.6. So that's the only reason we're on 5.6. Now rotate your dial to AV. This is aperture priority for you Canon users, Tracy for you Lumix. So it's AV. Okay, you're in AV. Good. Now what I want you to do is I want you to point your camera at a lamp in the room and then tell me if the meter is in the middle.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. What AV does is you choose the f-stop and the camera balances the light meter for you with the shutter speed. So you decide what f-stop you need, and then the camera sets the shutter speed accordingly. Now, then your brain has to look at the shutter speed and decide whether that shutter speed is going to be fast enough or slow enough to photograph your subject. So aperture priority, if you point your camera down at the floor, you'll see that you get a slow shutter speed when you point your camera at the floor. Right?
Yep.
Point your camera at the light and you'll get a faster shutter speed. Point your camera at the wall and you'll get a middle of the road shutter speed. You see that? So
Yeah.
aperture priority is it's balancing the light meter for you. Everybody see the light meter showing up in the bottom?
Yep.
And it's in the middle, right?
Yes.
Okay. Canon gives you the light meter and it's in the middle. Lumix may not give you the light meter, Tracy. Nikon's does not show you the light meter as long as it's in balance. Nikon does not show it to you. So Canon, you Canon users, you'll see your light meter scale and it'll be right in the middle. So why would you use aperture priority? You would use aperture priority if you knew what f-stop you needed. So say, for instance, we were in a bluebonnet field, or now we were in a field just of wildflowers. And we knew that we wanted to get a nice, creamy, out of focus background behind our wildflowers. So we would choose an f5.6 or an f4, and then we would just walk around the wildflower field and photograph the wildflowers. Because now we're going to, if the background's a long distance away from the wildflower, then the background's going to be nice and soft and fuzzy. And then we want to do a wildflower field, a whole bluebonnet field or something like that. So now we put the camera on the tripod and we put the f-stop on 22. And now we can do that whole depth of field photograph. So if we're going to do a landscape, then we would put the camera on the tripod and do f22. And now we don't have to worry about what our shutter speed is for something like that. So that's when we would use aperture priority, is when we knew what f-stop we needed. And then we would be willing to accept the shutter speeds that were given. So that's when we would use aperture priority. So aperture priority, this is going to confuse you just a bit, but I use aperture priority almost all the time. So if I'm walking through the garden and I'm photographing dragonflies, then I get an f-stop of about a 5.6, and I focus on the dragonfly's body or the dragonfly's wings, and then I just make sure that my shutter speed is fast enough. If I'm photographing birds, the same thing. I choose an f-stop of a 5.6 or a 6.8 or an 8 for birds, depending on what lens I've got on. And then I'm watching the shutter speed to see if that's fast enough to stop the bird, depending on what the bird's doing. And if it's not, I'm raising my ISO. So everybody notice that your ISO button is very convenient for you to push it with your finger without even having to take your eye off of the viewfinder. So if that shutter speed's not fast enough, then I push my ISO button, raise my ISO, and that allows me to raise my shutter speed accordingly. So I use aperture priority almost 100% of the time. So even though that seems counterintuitive, that's what I'm doing. So questions on aperture priority before I leave that one? No? Okay.
Well, I have a question, one question, and that is you're shooting aperture priority, but you're like with birding, sometimes you're bright, sometimes you're quite dark. So if I then make the aperture priority, I would change then as it gets darker, I would change it to be 8, 9.
Well, I was always
up.
using a long lens.
Yeah.
I would always use an 8 or a 9 or even a 10. And on my 500 millimeter lens now, I'm mirrorless and I'm using a 100 to 500 with a 1.4x extender. So I'm on 700 millimeters. I am always on f11 because the more magnification you have, the smaller your depth of field is. So if you're shooting a long lens at 5.6, most of the time, you're going to end up with a very narrow depth of field and you're going to end up with a lot of blurred birds.
Right.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Okay. There's a class that I teach.
I've always been scared, to go up too high. I think it would blur the image,
Yeah.
because I'm hand holding.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. There's a class that I teach just in bird photography that you might want to take one of these days because it covers that in more detail.
Make sure you put me on the list next time you have it.
Yeah.
I did check out to see if you had that and I didn't see it in your list.
It's not on schedule now, but I'll put it on for you coming up.
I'd be very interested in that.
Monica, question? No, you're just.
No, I was just excited about the bird photography class. I did the same thing. I was looking for it too to take it next.
Yeah.
So
I'll put it on for you all. Okay. Yeah. Look for it in July. I'll put it on for you. Okay. Now up on the top of your camera, shutter priority is called TV if you are a Canon user, and it's S if you are a Panasonic user. So rotate your dial to TV, which is timed value for you Canon users. And then it's shutter priority, Tracy, for you with your Lumax. So when you move your dial to shutter priority, TV, your front dial, everybody with a Canon, becomes changing your shutter speed. And by the way, when you are in aperture priority, your front dial changes your aperture at that point. It switches when you move between shutter priority and aperture priority and manual. So now you're in shutter priority, and I would like you to point your camera at the wall in your room, and I want you to rotate your front dial to 60. So point the camera at the wall and rotate your front dial to 60. And when you get to 60, is your f-stop blinking at you, or what is your f-stop?
Mine is
blinking.
blinking.
Mine's blinking.
4.5.
4.0.
And it's blinking at you, right? Okay.
Mine's 3.5.
In shutter priority, you set the shutter speed. The camera sets the f-stop or tries to. So when I asked you to go to 60th of a second, the camera is trying to get you to a balanced meter, but it can't because the room's dark. So it's blinking at you to try to tell you that you got a problem. So that's how that f-stop is blinking at you. It's trying to say, I got a problem, please, 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 you know, watch out for me, do something. So point your camera at the wall and rotate your shutter speed dial until the f-stop quits blinking at you. And where does it quit blinking at you? Should be like a 10th or a 15th of a second, right? Where does it quit blinking
Wow.
at you?
Mine is at 5.
5th of a second?
5th of a second.
5th of a second? Good, take the picture. Alicia, when did it quit blinking at you?
It's a 6.
6, good, take the picture. Monica and Pam, when's it quit blinking at you?
0.4.
0.4.
Good, 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 good. This is just basic room light. We just don't have enough light in these rooms, even though it looks like we do, we just don't have enough light. And then if you go back to 60, please, for me, does your light meter show up when you're at 60 and the f-stop is blinking?
Mhm.
Does it show up? And does it show up that it's out of balance, or is the f-stop just blinking at you?
Just f-stop
It's in
blinking.
the middle and f-stop's blinking.
Just f-stops blinking, light meter still in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, now you've got to watch it because, you know, this is an automated mode. And if you didn't know any better, you would think, oh, well, okay, you know, the light meter's in the middle, I can take the picture. But you notice that it's a kind of a dark image because the light meter is in the middle,
Yeah.
but the f-stop saying, I can't do this. You know, you can ask me to do it if you want to, but it's just not going to work. So you've got to understand how this camera is trying to warn you that you've got problems. Okay. So shutter priority is when you knew good and well what shutter speed you needed. So that's when you would use shutter priority. So there's a few times when I know exactly what shutter speed I need, and I'll show you one of those in just a moment. But shutter priority is when you know what shutter speed you need, and then you're making sure that you've got an f-stop that's not blinking, and then you can use your ISO if you need to raise your ISO. Okay, so shutter priority is when you know what shutter speed you need, and I'll show you something in just a second. Now, up on the top, you've got all kinds of other things on those dials. And now that you've sat with me for 2 classes, I do not want you to use those other things because there's all kinds of weird stuff that happens when you use those other settings on the top of your camera. And I'm going to illustrate it with Alicia's camera. So Alicia, would you put your camera, it doesn't work on everybody else's camera. I just need it to be on Alicia's camera. Would you put your camera on the green box mode? The little green box.
Okay.
And now push your menu button.
Okay.
And then how many menus do you have going across the top?
5.
5. Good. Now put your camera in the manual mode up on top. And how many menus do you have going across the top?
8.
8. Okay.
Yeah.
So in Alicia's camera, if she's in the program mode, you know, the green box mode, which is the first mode that the whole manual tells you about, she has 5 menus. But if she's in the manual mode, which is what Kathy's told you about, she's got 8 menu items. So that means that when if hypothetically she moved to the green box mode, 3 menus full of features that she paid for have now been taken away from her, and she doesn't even know that they don't exist. So that's what happens when you go into the running man mode or the tulip mode or the lady with the hat mode or the program mode or the green box mode or any of those other modes, is the camera shuts down certain features because the engineers figure you don't know what you're doing, because otherwise you wouldn't be in those modes. So by being in those modes, they're going to prevent you from hurting yourself by shutting stuff off on your camera, but you paid money for your camera. And so now by being in the manual mode, aperture priority mode, or shutter priority mode, you have access to all the features on your camera. So that's why I want you all there. Okay. And you all have been through this already, so you know how to do this. Okay. So you don't need to go in that green box mode or anything like that. Okay. So everybody's back in the M mode, right? On the top of the camera. Okay, good. So now rotate to aperture priority, AV. And then, oh, I'm sorry. Go back to shutter priority. I got ahead of myself. Go back to TV and rotate the dial to 60 so that you're at 60th of a second shutter speed. Shouldn't be too far away from where you were before. Okay. Now pop your flash up, please. So that's the little lightning bolt button. And Bonnie, does your camera have a flash on it? Pop-up flash? Oh, you got the top mounted flash. It doesn't have a pop-up flash. Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, good. Now, everybody else with your pop-up flash, when I use shutter priority is when I'm using the flash. So when you popped your flash up, or Bonnie, you put that flash on the top of your camera, and Bonnie, you want to push the button on your flash so that it's on ETT and L. ETT and L. That means electronic through the lens metering. Everybody else, your pop-up flash is automatically on ETT and L, electronic through the lens metering. So now what Canon has your camera do, and Panasonic will do this too for Tracy's camera, is that wherever you focus, the camera now knows to send light to that point and turn off. So if you would photograph like a little statue in your room or something at 60th of a second, or if there's another human or another animal around or something like that, and when you just shoot it at 60th of a second and use that pop-up flash, you see how the picture on the back doesn't look too bad? Doesn't look overexposed, doesn't look blown out, right? Yeah?
My flash isn't working.
Turn your flash on.
I did.
Yeah. Does it have the red light on the back? No, so the batteries are out.
Batteries out.
Yeah. Because it has the red light.
Since I used it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody else, did your flash picture look okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if
It looks good.
Huh?
It looks good.
Good. If I have a bunch of people around the house and we're having a party, families here or something like that, and I want to take pictures, y'all have already seen that we don't have enough light for 60th of a second. 60th of a second stops, smiles and laughs and that type of stuff. So it stops the action. So if I'm walking around the house and I just want to take pictures of people in light like we have right now, then I can use 60th of a second shutter priority, pop the flash up, and I can just go around and photograph people, and everybody kind of looks normal. It's not overly blown out, doesn't look overly flashed. So it just works really, really well. So that's when we would use shutter priority. That's one example of when we would use shutter priority. Now rotate that dial to aperture priority, AV up on the top, and put your f-stop back at 5.6. And then I want you to hold the camera really steady and photograph a statue or a knick-knack or something around you. Hold the camera real, real steady, because now you've got a slow shutter speed, right? Yeah, so you got a slow shutter speed, but it didn't look bad, right?
Oh, that's good.
It's not, because
Oh,
what the flash does is the flash solidifies the subject. And then if you held the camera pretty steady, then it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. So that's where the flash is good on that one. Okay. So that's aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual. Questions on those? Nope. So just to show you a little bit more about flash. So Bonnie has the top mounted flash. And for all of you all, the Canon 430 EX2 or EX3, the 2 will run you about $250, and you might even be able to find some used ones at Houston Camera Exchange or Precision Camera. Bonnie, which one do you have?
I have the 430 EX2.
430 EX2. So for me, it's a nice small flash, compact, but at the same time, it's really, really powerful. Your pop-up flash on your camera only goes about 10 feet, but that 430 EX2 will go 60 feet. So this flash is super powerful, nice addition to your camera bag without having to cost you a whole lot of money. Look at this photo of this young lady, and you'll notice that down on the lower left-hand corner of the photo, there's a real precise shadow. See that from the statue that she's leaning against? So that tells you that there's probably shadows on her face. So by using the flash and then lighting up those shadows on her face, I can remove the shadows from her face. So if the sun's real intense, it's going to be very hard. But in this case, I've filled in those shadows around her face. Now, this 430 EX flash is a super smart flash. It's an ETTNL flash. That's why you leave it set on ETTNL. When I focused on her face, the flash knows that's how far to send light and then turn off. That's all that flash knows what to do. Hit the focus point and turn off. So it's not lighting up the whole world like it would in the old days. These are really, really smart flashes. And then here's another example of this. If you're going to be at holiday parties this summertime when you've got family around and that type of stuff, if you've got any of those lighted trees behind you, or you know, if you want to string some those little white Christmas lights up or something like that, or you're at a restaurant where you've got some of those lights behind you, these make wonderful backgrounds. So think about positioning your subject in front of those backgrounds. I just followed him along until he walked in front of those lights, and then I just, you know, got his attention and hit him with the flash, but you can't tell that he's being flashed in his face. And that's because that 430 EX just kisses the subject with light and turns off when it's in aperture priority, manual, or shutter priority. So whenever the meter is balanced, then it works that way. So usually that's going to be aperture priority or manual mode. In the event that you want to photograph a creature at night, so this is a genet from Africa, and he's a mongoose, looks like a cat, but he's a mongoose. And he comes out at night to get insects up in the rafters in the restaurants. And, you know, I'm going to photograph this animal. I'm not going to let this animal get away from me without taking a picture of it. So this is the time, because we don't have enough light and we want to freeze it. This is the time when I would go shutter priority, put the flash on, turn the flash on ETTNL, go 60th of a second shutter speed, because the genet's not moving around too much, just kind of sitting around, and then focus on the genet. Flash goes out, hits him, flash turns off. I get my picture. So that flash is a really nice gadget to have. And remember, the top mounted flash, the pop-up flash, will go about 10 feet, but that 430 EX will go about 60 feet. So darn good gadget to add to your camera bag. And you can pick them up used now. So they're good to have.
So I should start using it.
Yes, you should start using it. Exactly. And then if you have it's darker, like in this example of the picture, and you've got, once again, you got that lighted background, no matter what that lighted background is, twinkly lights on the streets, lights in a bar or a restaurant. If you've got that lighted background, then you can go shutter priority, 60th of a second, hit the subject with the flash, and this is the type photograph that you get. So it's not overly blown out. It doesn't look really, you know, glaring or anything. So these flash photographs can be good if you use that pop-up flash or else your top mounted flash on ETTNL. So 60th of a second, this is a time when I would do shutter priority and then just use the top mounted flash or the pop-up flash. Good?
Yep.
Good, good. That top mounted flash also comes in really handy because the head of it rotates. And so here I was at the Cadillac Ranch up in Amarillo working on the Back Roads of Texas book. And I just happened to arrive there on an overcast, dreary, drizzly, snowy, licky day. And it just is horrible. And I don't know how in the heck I'm going to take a picture of this place to make it to a book that makes people want to go there. So these people walked up with this really nice looking dog. And I said, well, you know, can I put the dog in the picture? And they said, oh, sure, you can do anything you want. Well, that top mounted flash like Bonnie has, Bonnie, hold that up one more time if you would. Yeah, that top mounted flash, the head of it rotates.
Yeah.
So I rotated the head over to the side toward the dog. Yep, demonstrating. Good, 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 good.
Yes.
And then I put my focus point on the back of the dog's head. So now that's telling the flash, go there. Don't go forward, go to the side. And then the flash goes over there, hits that dog, and lo and behold, the flash spilled out and hit all the metallic paint on all those cars. And so all the cars lit up. So that was just great because now I knew, oh my gosh, I can run all over these stupid cars and use my flash and it's just going to light all the paint up. You know, so you learn things like that every once in a while. Pamela, you've got a top mounted flash as well?
I did, and I have been playing with this sucker for a long time, and then finally figured out that it's the ETTNL.
It's the ETTNL,
Yeah.
Exactly.
So thank you. That is amazing.
And then you never have to mess with it from there on. Yeah, it's always easy.
Awesome.
So another way that you can add light to your pictures is with a reflector. And in your homework, I ask you to take a piece of cardboard and cover it with aluminum foil. And then in the sun, you can reflect light on it. I'm sure you did that as a kid playing with a mirror where you reflected light around. But with a reflector, it's a device that I'll show you in just a second. You can buy it for like $29 Amazon. In this picture of this woman, there's a reflector in the lower left-hand corner reflecting sunlight back up on her face. And then there's sunlight coming in on the top right-hand corner. So sunlight's on one side of her face and the reflector is reflecting light up on the other side of her face. A reflector that you should buy is this 5-in-1 reflector. And that a variety of different companies make them. These cost $29 or so. And it's a 24-inch reflector. Don't get a real big one bigger than that because it blows away in the wind. Don't get a smaller one than that because it doesn't do you any good. So a 24-inch works really well. But the neat thing about these 5-in-1 reflectors is I have a silver cover on one side, a gold cover on the other side. So I can turn it inside out. So I have silver on one side or gold on the other side. If the subject has a rosy complexion like this, then I would use the silver on her because that's going to reflect silver light back up on her. If the subject is more olive complected, then we would use the gold side. Or if the flower is more pink, I would use the silver side. But if it's more yellow, I would use the gold side. So you play with this. And then this gives you a good example of how the 5-in-1 reflector can be put into practice. Young lady on the left, you see how many harsh shadows we got because now we're shooting under really harsh lighting conditions. But over on the right-hand side, I've propped the reflector up by her butt and it's reflecting sunlight back up on the side of her that's in the shadows. And so that reflector is reflecting sunlight back up on her. So this reflector is a really neat gadget to have because it's a very soft light. You can add it with a flash, so you can use a flash plus a reflector. You can bounce the flash off of the reflector. So there's all kinds of fun things you can do with it. And at a gadget for $29 that can be delivered to your house in 5 days from Amazon, not bad, you know, so it's a
So,
fun thing to play with.
Kathy,
Yeah.
I just looked them up. They're on sale, y'all, for $13.55. There's
$13.55, order them, guys.
Nice.
I like photographing in the garden. I like photographing flowers, and I like doing macro work. Those reflectors are beautiful because you can put those in the garden and reflect sunlight back up at the flower. Absolutely beautiful, really beautiful. So good, they're on sale, yay. Okay, now there's another concept, changing gears completely, called flat to the film plane. Flat to the film plane. So the film plane is where your film used to be, but that's where the sensor is now. So that sensor in the back of your camera is absolutely flat. It's completely flat. And your depth of field goes out absolutely parallel to your sensor. So your depth of field is parallel to the back of your camera. So flat to the film plane, if you want all of these water drops along that canna lily to be in focus, then I need to make sure my camera is absolutely parallel to all of those water drops, flat to the film plane. So when we line up to our subject, be it a bird or be it a flower or be it a butterfly, this is at the Cockrell Butterfly Center, I want, if I have a shallow depth of field, then I want to put my camera absolutely parallel to my subject to maximize my depth of field, because depth of field is absolutely parallel to the back of the camera. So if I tilt my camera like this, my depth of field goes like this. And if I tilt my camera like this, my depth of field goes like this. So that's why we want to keep our camera as parallel to our subject as possible to maximize a shallow depth of field. So for instance, this is a caiman down in the Brazilian Pantanal, and I'm using an f8, so a fairly fat depth of field, but I'm using a telephoto lens. So that means the more magnification I have, the shallower my depth of field is. And I'm focusing on the caiman's nose, and you see that the depth of field only goes down to that big tooth he has. So that's f8, and that's all f8 will do when you're using a telephoto lens. But if I pull the boat upside the caiman, f8 now looks like the whole caiman's in focus. You see that?
Oh,
So like Alicia on your Coke bottle, if your camera was absolutely parallel to that Coke bottle, then you would have made sure that you had good depth of field.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you see? So
Yeah.
we're lining our camera up to be absolutely parallel to our subject. So instead of shooting the caiman's nose straight down and trying to get the depth of field to fill in his whole face, pull the boat over to the side, line the camera up absolutely parallel to it. And now it looks like f8 is really deep. Make sense?
yeah.
Good. So that's called flat to the film plane. And then tripods. So you need a tripod, and you need a good tripod. And this is my favorite tripod. It's a MePhoto Globetrotter classic carbon fiber tripod. When the MePhoto people came to me about 10 years ago and they asked me to test this tripod, I was really, really snooty. I told them, no, I have a $600 tripod. It weighs 8 pounds. You know, I only use good tripods. Well, my $600 tripod sits in the back of my car most of the time. I don't use it anymore. So this MePhoto Globetrotter classic carbon fiber tripod, it weighs about 3 pounds. And then it extends to about a little bit more my height. So it extends to about my eyebrows. And then if I put the camera on top of the ball head, and that way it'll even extend over my head. And then when I fold it up, it will fold up to about 1.5 feet, so that when I travel, it's the last thing on the top of my suitcase, and it goes right on top. So when TSA opens it up, they know what it is. They can leave it alone. So it only takes up a little bit of weight when I'm traveling. So this is a really, really nice tripod. Neat thing about it too, is it comes all in one unit. So the ball head, because we as photographers, still photographers use a ball head, so the camera rotates around in it. The only knob that we need to turn is the big knob on the side. So it's easy just to loosen the camera, tighten the camera, loosen the camera, tighten the camera. It has the 4 legs, so we can level it no matter what the surface is. And then also the plate up here on the top of the camera is called an Arca Swiss type plate. And this is the gold standard of plates. So once you Allen wrench this plate onto the bottom of your camera, or buy another one and Allen wrench it onto your long lenses like that. Bonnie, you have the 1:4 lens,
Yes.
100 to 400. So you Allen wrench it onto the tripod collar, and that way you always have it.
Yeah.
And then so in your different cameras, and if you have long lenses, you're going to put different plates on them. And then that way, wherever you need a plate, it's always just Allen wrench to your camera. Alicia, you look confused. You got it?
No. Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
It's a lot better than the tripod you were trying to use.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
good.
nice thing too with this Me Photo is it comes in lots of different colors. So it comes in green and red and blue and gold and silver and black. You can sometimes find the yellow one or the pink one or the orange one. And so wherever you see silver on this one, they introduce different colors every once in a while. So they introduced a pink one for Breast Cancer Awareness Month one year. So you might still be able to find a pink one if you were interested in a pink tripod, but it's only the little colored areas, not the entire tripod. Don't get anything other than the classic, because they've put out a new version of this and the newer version is not as good. Okay. So that's your tripod that you need to buy. And so then your lenses, what lens do you have on right now? Bonnie, you got the 24 to 105, right?
Yeah.
What
Yes,
lens do you have right now? What do you have?
I have an 18 to 55.
18 to 55, good.
That's what I have as well.
18 to 55, Monica?
18 to 55. Earlier I had 150 to 600.
Okay, so 18 to 55. So your 18 to 55s give you a fairly wide field of view.
Mhm.
And then Bonnie, for your camera, your 24 to 105 gives you a nice wide field of view. So the lens that you have right now is what I call a walk around lens. This is kind of your basic grab it first lens to go photograph, a butterfly in the backyard, or go photograph the kids or the animals or something like that. So this is just kind of your basic old ordinary walk around lens. A more wide angle lens can give you almost a 180 degree field of view. So Monica, Alicia, and Pamela, that would be your 18 to 22.
Mm-hmm.
And Bonnie, that would be your 16 to 35. So these are your super wide angle lenses for your grand landscape. So this picture that you're looking at on the screen is done with a super wide angle lens. And these lenses, by the way, because they're so wide, because they give you almost 180 degrees, you tilt them up slightly to make the sky bigger, like this sky. The storm was great, but if you tilt that lens up just a little bit off angle, the storm gets bigger. And then if you tilt it more toward the ground gets bigger. So you use these lenses slightly off axis to make the sky look bigger or the foreground look bigger. So this would be for Pam and Alicia and Monica, these would be your 10 to 22s. And then Bonnie, this would be your 16 to 35. And then the nice thing too about this super wide angle lens, and by the way, this is not used for people photography because everybody's going to put 10 pounds on because it stretches. Okay, so this is not a people lens. This is a landscape lens, but this is great for interiors, the inside of a church, the inside of a castle. This is a great lens for that kind of really grand stuff. But the neat thing about these lenses also is that they focus really close. so I can get down in the blue bonnet field, focus close on the blue
Mhm.
bonnets, go my f/22. And when you're using these wide angle lenses, your depth of fields are fatter. So that f/22 really does give me the grand landscape. And then lenses for your camera are tools. The camera manufacturers have never made a lens willy-nilly. Every lens is designed for a specific purpose. It's the same thing as a wrench. It's the same thing as a screwdriver. It is designed for a specific purpose. So if you're thinking about buying a new lens, you might want to borrow one from a friend, rent one from a photo rental source over on Katy Highway. You might want to rent it before you use it to see whether this really is the lens you want to use. So before you buy a lens, make sure that you need it. I own 5 lenses. And so I don't need a lot of lenses. I shoot everything I need with 5 lenses. And one of those lenses sits on the shelf because it's a macro lens and I rarely use it, because my 24-105 does macro, my 16-35 does macro, and my 100-500 does macro. So I never need a macro lens because all my lenses have macro settings and they all do macro. So let me show you this little video real fast. This is every lens I could get my hands on one day. And I'm changing the lens. You can see the number down in the bottom right-hand corner. And then that building gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But then with 10, you can't even see the building out there.
Right.
You see that? And then we get to 500, we can see the building, but boom, 10, we can't even see the building. So you see that every lens gives us a different field of view. They're all designed for different purposes. So before you go buy a lens, consider renting, borrowing, before you spend money on a new lens, and make sure that it really is a lens that you need. And by the way, if you are ever shopping for equipment and you want my opinion, I'll gladly give you my opinion. I'll tell you what I think about it. I've used them all over the years. So if ever you're thinking about buying, or somebody's going to sell you a piece of equipment or something like that, if you want my opinion, if I'm around, I'll answer you immediately on something like that. I'll spend your money anytime you want me to. Okay. But let me show you the difference in some lenses. So this is your 18-55. So Alicia, this is what you've got on your lens, right? Or on your camera, right? The 18-55. It's a perfectly fine lens, but it's at f. I'm going to zoom out to 55 millimeters and I'm going to shoot it at f4. And this is a little ornament that I put in my office window. And you can see out my office window that, you can see the street out there. You can see this, a little bit of the screen, see that? But otherwise at f4, it's a pretty nice blurred out background. But this is the same 50 millimeters f4, but this is a specially designed lens. So this is a specially designed lens. It's a fixed lens, so there's no zoom on it. That means you have to walk up and back from your subject. There's no zoom on it. It's meant for studio work. But when I set it to f4, you notice how much prettier the background is. So
Yeah.
This is that 18-55, but then this is this studio lens that's got an even more pristine background on it. But watch what happens when I put my 70-200 f4, and this is in the professional line of lenses that Canon puts out. Now my background is just pure. And that's because this lens was designed to do that, to give you this really, really pure, pristine background. That's what it's designed for. So the difference in the background between each lens at f4 is just what the lens was designed for. So they've each got different design characteristics and they're each made for different things. Questions on lenses?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, so that's all I've got for you all tonight. So coming up, I'm going to put the bird photography lens, for you all. I'll put it on tomorrow, okay?
We're excited about that.
Yeah, good. Y'all want an evening bird photography? You want evening or
Enjoy
morning?
that.
Evening
I mean, either
one
is
fine
fine
with
for
me.
me.
Okay,
Yeah.
either's
Because
good.
Yeah, I'm off of work right now. So
Okay, either one, hot dog. I'll
Yeah.
check my calendar. I'll find some time because all my online classes are either
Okay.
at 10 in the morning or 7 at night. So coming up, I've got an introduction to Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw. So you're going to need
Okay.
to know how to process your pictures. I noticed several of you all are shooting in RAW. And so you've got to know
Yeah.
how to process those pictures and how to do something with them. And this one's coming up sometime soon. Intentional camera movement is when we take pictures with the moving camera. And there are some really cool things that we can do with an intentional camera movement. So it's a lot of fun blurring pictures. Crystal balls coming up. And then I've got master's classes coming up starting on Monday, 4 of them. Night photography, macro photography, flower photography, and textures. Textures are where we make pictures look like oil paintings or watercolors.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's really good. It's a great way, by the way, to learn layers because you have to know how to learn, you have to know how to use layers. So it's a very simple way to learn how to use layers. So those classes are coming up beginning next week. And you've got homework. They go over 4 weeks. Yeah. So you've got homework. So this means that you know, you once again, you beat your head against a wall, come back and share with everybody else and realize how good you did. And then if you want to travel, I'm going to Northern Ireland in September, Norway for the Northern Lights in September also, Spain in October, Greece in November, and then starting in February next year, I have another trip to Costa Rica for birds. It's a really, really nice route in Costa Rica for birds. And then this bird photography workshop in the hill country, it filled up the other day, except it can take one man. Yeah, it can take one man, but that's all right now because it's full. Otherwise, keep watching my website. I'll let you know when I'm doing something new. And here's all my contact information. I'm on Facebook, Kathy Adams Clark. So if you want to make friends with me, I make friends with you. We can keep looking at each other's pictures. I'm on Instagram as well. Questions?
Just in the bird photography class,
Yeah.
do you go over using the long lens, the telephoto lens as well? Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, and what are the options that we've got out there now? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I go over all that stuff for bird photography.
I have a quick question. It's not relevant really, but I've had a friend when I was in Panama, this lady said, oh, you've got the 6D. You really need to go mirrorless and move up to the 1 to 500, get rid of that. You'll find it so much better. Is that true?
Mirrorless is pretty remarkable.
Is it?
It is. It
She
is.
said I'm losing a lot. The technology has changed so much in 10 years that she said that it would really be worth my while to do that and sell my present, get set up and to get the mirrorless with the 1 to 500.
And if you can make the change, if you can afford to make that change, then I think it is very worthwhile. The differences too that we're seeing is the glass is all new. So that means in any of your lenses, you know, like your 24 to 105 was probably made 15 years ago. So we're dealing with glass that's just a whole lot better and modern. The autofocus technology is new and different. We've got with the mirrorless, we've got bird eye, so it locks in on the bird's eye. We've got human eye, so it locks in on human's eyes. We've got pet eye, so it locks in on pet eyes. So there's technology like that is pretty neat. So it is cool technology. I moved 2.5 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Well,
sold
for the next time, I may just get your input onto what would be the best way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
As to which camera, et cetera, et cetera.
And also, you know, there's a lot of people that can use that camera and would gladly take that camera off your hand and buy that camera from you. And so and that's what's nice right now too, is that there's a lot of used equipment coming on the market and the prices for used equipment are really, really good right now.
Right.
So that's.
So would you sell the camera, et cetera? Would you go to that, the Houston
It depends on whether you have enough contacts. I had enough contacts that I sold my equipment. And what I did was I sold my equipment as I bought. So as I bought, I sold, and I bought, I sold. So it was a leapfrog for about 6 months. But Houston Camera Exchange or Precision Camera, you know,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Remember that there's other people in class. So, you know,
Yeah.
and if any of you all who are saying I'm interested, you're more than welcome to speak up, and I'll put you all in contact with each other.
Okay. That's perfect. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
you're
still
welcome.
mulling it over.
Any
Yeah.
other questions before I leave you all for the night?
Nope.
I
Thank
don't
you.
think so.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. So remember,
what-
you still have some homework, but that's
Mhm.
just for you. If you run
Okay.
into questions with it, then feel free to ask. But
Okay.
that homework's just for you. So for your experience. And then I hope to see you in another class someday soon.
Yes.
You will.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
All right. Thanks, Kathy.
Okay.
Thanks,
You're
Thank
Kathy.
you.
Good
Bye.
night. And I'll share
Bye-bye.
the recording with you tomorrow, remember?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Oh, I
Thank
wanted
you.
to ask you about that.
Yes.
I couldn't, you put it in the Dropbox, or where did you put it? Because I could never
No,
find it.
the recording is on YouTube.
Oh,
And so
duh.
send me, it's in that email that I sent you the day after last class.
Oh, I'll have to look again.
And
Okay.
then if you can't find it, tell me and I'll send you the link to it. Because I have a YouTube channel, by the way, that has all of my teaching videos and stuff on it. But classes like this are private, so nobody else can see them.
Okay.
So it's on my YouTube channel.
All right. Thank you.
You are welcome. Okay.